This week's lecture covers the teen market and some early 60s music styles. It is interesting that the word teenager was not in our American vocabulary until 1951, when it was created in order to market goods and services to this large and prosperous market. 50s teens in the U.S. experienced a boon of prosperity and had enough income to afford records, jukeboxes, and in some instances even their own transistor radios. Probably the most successful person to market to teenagers and their parents was Dick Clark. He held the title of America's oldest teenager due to his involvement in rock and popular music and his eternally youthful appearance. His television program in Philadelphia, called Bandstand, broadcast teens dancing to the latest hits. In 1957, when the show went national and changed its name to American Bandstand, Clark brought a new level of respectability to rock music by his strict dress and behavior codes. This reassured worried parents that this music was not going to turn their children into rough-acting hoodlums. By the 70s and 80s, the dress codes were dropped, but the popularity of the show did not. It is important to note that these youths did not have MTV yet, so a show that highlighted teens dancing that was marketed to their peers was very successful. One might consider it the YouTube of its day. Be sure and watch the video clip in this week's box of an excerpt from a 1970s episode of American Bandstand. Don Kirshner was another pioneering businessman in rock's early years. Since he was a songwriter, he felt that songwriters should receive more recognition and prominence rather than the promoters and record executives. After the payola scandals and the investigation exposed corruption throughout the music business, songwriters gained more significance. Kirshner's company, Alden Music, employed some of rock and popular music's greatest songwriters. Girl groups based on the doo-wop rhythm and blues style were the first focus of the Alden songwriting teams. These groups preceded the stars of Motown by just a few years and helped pave the way for those later groups. The subject matter of a girl group was much more scrutinized than that of a male group. Early girl groups like the Shirelles sang on safe topics such as love, love lost and gained, and the continued search for new love. The Alden music writing team of Carole King and Jerry Goffin wrote one of the Shirelles' biggest hits, Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow? As rock and popular music matured, certain genius producers emerged with their own proprietary sound. Phil Spector was one of these producers. Long before any digital sound mixers, Spector created a distinct sound to the groups he produced through sometimes secret methods. The Spector sound was known for the huge feeling it conveyed to the listener. He did this through special echo chambers, doubling up on instruments, and other tricks he kept secret. The sound he produced was given the name the Wall of Sound. Spector's genius in the studio would later impress a young Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys and the Beatles. One of the groups that sang Alden music songs and was produced by Phil Spector was the Ronettes. In their hit, Be My Baby, you can hear the huge sound quality in this song from the opening first beats, even before the singers begin. The Ronettes were also fashion trendsetters, with their large beehive hairdos, cat's eye makeup, and tight slit skirts. Besides the Ronettes' hit Be My Baby, other good examples of Spector's Wall of Sound can be heard in the songs Spanish Harlem by Ben E. King and You've Lost That Lovin' Feelin' by the Righteous Brothers. Not all the early 60s girl groups played it safe. The Shangri-Las wore edgy clothes and go-go boots, and sang of teenage angst and ultimately teen death. Their hit, Leader of the Pack, told the story that every parent feared, their daughter falling for a bad boy. This melody was too much for the censors in England, and the song was banned by the BBC for its depiction of a teen death. Pay attention to the inclusion of a motorcycle in this song, which represents the rebel figure that had been captured in films by actors like Marlon Brando and James Dean. In the early days of rock, this also can be studied from the regional styles that rose to prominence. California has often been a highly desirable place to live for many reasons: good weather, beautiful landscape, it's Hollywood, Disneyland, and we are even the home of Barbie. Those not living in California may have the impression that all that takes place in the state are parties, waves, and girls. Surely no one actually has to work for a living or go to school. Surfing and the culture surrounding the sport represents the freedom and power of life on the ocean. Lebanese-American Dick Dale captured this power and freedom in his Hawaiian guitar-inspired instrumental rock music. This new genre, surf rock, was rock's first all-instrumental rock music. You can hear Dale's interest in Arabic music in his hit Misirlou. Dale, along with other groups like the Ventures from Seattle, Washington, not known for its surfing, created the soundtrack to surf life. If one lived in Iowa in a blizzard-filled winter, at least they could play this music and imagine warmer climates. When words were added to surf music, the topics were very superficial. Waves, cars, girls, and parties were the topics. An entire industry evolved in surf rock, which included a series of films starring former Mouseketeer Annette Funicello and Philadelphia teen heartthrob Frankie Avalon. Now, not only the U.S., but the world could dream of living the surf life. Jan and Dean from Huntington Beach, California, also known as Surf City, had one of the first vocal surf rock hits with Surf City, which was written by Beach Boy Brian Wilson. The lyrics espouse 2 girls for every boy. Of course people wanted to move to California. In what might be considered a novelty category, the Trashmen jumped on the surf bandwagon with their underground hit Surfin' Bird. There is little else in the song but a few nonsense lyrics. During surf rock's heyday, if just the word surf was added to a song, it gained some semblance of popularity. The next few slides introduce the leaders in this genre, the Beach Boys. They were from landlocked Hawthorne, California, and their iconic multi-part vocal harmonies expressed California surf culture. The group was made up of the Wilson brothers, their cousin and family friend. They were managed by the Wilsons' domineering father, and their songwriter and musical genius is Brian Wilson. After some difficult touring years and a nervous breakdown, Brian Wilson swore off touring and remained in the studio. Here he created what many scholars of rock music call one of the largest contributions to early rock music. The album Pet Sounds is considered rock's first concept album, since all of the tracks on the album convey a central theme or concept. Brian was a perfectionist in the studio and very inspired with Phil Spector's Wall of Sound. Brian's attention to sound detail can be heard in the track Good Vibrations, which was for its time one of the most expensive single tracks ever recorded in rock music. Brian constantly moved studios in search of specific sounds, and even included the sound of an unusual instrument, the theremin, which dates back to the early 20th century. You can hear the theremin in good vibrations at about the 20-second mark in the song. You can also hear it near the end of the song a bit louder. The name Pet Sounds comes from the idea of pet projects. We all have them. They are goals or projects that we hope to accomplish someday. For the Beach Boys, this album represented their favorite, or pet, sounds. The decision to take the cover photo in a petting zoo was a last-minute decision. This revolutionary concept album inspired the Beatles and their manager George Martin as they contemplated going into the studio as well.